Oh my goodness, we're back. It's the O Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, CW. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to hit that bell on YouTube and subscribe to the podcast on any and all platforms. Today, we're talking about Chad Gable versus Gunther, the feud we've all wanted and didn't know. I've been singing Chad Gable's praises for quite a while. The man is a consummate professional. I think he had an interview with some outlet. It was probably Chris Van Vliet, however you say his name. Shout out to him and his 500 episodes, where Chad Gable stated that he felt Triple H saw him as a utility player, someone who can go out, put out great matches, put people over, and do the job when needed, right? And at some point that was going to pay off with something, you know? And I think we're headed in that direction. So Alpha Academy has been great forever. I think we all know, even when they were heels, they were great. When they did the turn with Maxine a couple months ago, it was fantastic. They had all the parts in place to kind of get over with the crowd. They have their shoosh, they have the thank you, they have, all their kind of goofy antics. And I think we were all wondering when they were going to pull the trigger on Alpha Academy. I did an episode maybe a couple episodes ago for this season, and just talking about how Alpha Academy was on the right track with Maxine and how their academy actually became an academy, which I think they ended a little too quickly. They graduated her after 3 moves, which I don't think is proper. They should have kept that going, having a curriculum with her. They could have milked that for a long time and have her work her way through the women's division with wins and losses and kind of tracking her progress and kind of seeing where she ends up, and then culminating it in some sort of, I don't know, here's your big match against Becky Lynch. We talked our way into it, and then she wins or loses, whatever, but then they graduate her. But whatever. I'm thinking long term for that, because she's still super green, and Maxine is still great. She's making the most of this new gimmick, and I think it's fantastic, but they could have pulled it a little further. But now they have Chad Gable kind of moving to the forefront, and I think that's why they didn't keep the training thing going. They wanted to move Chad to the limelight. Otis had his time back in 2020 or 2021 when he won the Money in the Bank, and they didn't pull the trigger on it. But now it's Chad's time, I think, and they have him in a program with the ring general, Gunther. I couldn't ask for a better opponent for Chad Gable. The reason being is that Chad Gable and Gunther are basically the same person. They're both ring generals. They're both fantastic professional wrestlers. They're both very technical. They've both command the ring. They both can go. They both put on fantastic matches. They're in the same league. And I think the best part about the angle of Alpha Academy versus Imperium is that they are opposite ends of a spectrum. So there is a story there. Gunther sees Chad as a viable opponent because Chad is a legit Olympic professional wrestler. And Gunther's whole thing is respecting the ring and becoming a real professional wrestler, and he does things by the book, but he's a heel. So everything he does, he does it with brutality. He does it with strength and power and cheating. He has his 2 goons on the outside pulling the strings. Everything he does to quote unquote respect the ring, but he just does it in a bad way. Gunther is a great heel. He has a purpose, and he has an objective, and he has an ideology that he believes is the ultimate right way to do things, even if it's the wrong way to do it, right? That makes a great villain. That's why people love Thanos. He had an agenda, and he wanted to get it done, and he thought that was going to help people, but it was just going to murder everybody. Gunther has not the same. Let's not call him the Thanos of the. Yeah, hell it. He's the Thanos of the WWE right now. The man knows what he wants. He has the title. He can kind of call his own shot, which makes him very dangerous. And now that he's put his sights on Chad Gable, who is on the opposite sides of the same spectrum, where he's having more fun with professional wrestling. He is an Olympic wrestler. Every time you put Chad Gable in a match, he makes it memorable. And no bigger scene than the fatal four-way that got Chad Gable the shot at Gunther's IC title, where all four men did a fantastic job, but they gave Chad Gable the big spot where he suplexed everybody off the top rope, and then he got the win. Chad Otis and Queen Maxine, the Alpha Queen Maxine, they are having the most fun. And they're doing it with professional wrestling. So pairing these two up, they're diametrically opposed, but the leaders of both groups are just ready to go. And having Gunther face Chad Gable in that 5-minute challenge, and then Chad surviving the 5-minute challenge, and then having an actual match afterwards is the ultimate let's put Chad Gable over, because he was smart in the match. Chad didn't look to wrestle or out wrestle Gunther in the 5 minutes. He looked to survive. So he did everything in his power to get through 5 minutes. He's like, I'm not going to try and pin you. I'm not going to try and do all this stuff. I'm going to survive this onslaught for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to win. That's the whole game. That's what you wanted to do. And he did it. And Gunther was on the back foot, and he demanded more time. Being the champ, he's going to get it. And then he ends up getting the win there. But Chad came out looking like roses because he survived, and he went with Gunther. And there's a legitimate chance that Chad has against Gunther, which I don't know if Chad Gable will be the one to give Gunther his first IC title loss. But if he is, I don't think anyone's going to be upset. Chad Gable is super over. Gunther can make Chad Gable. They're going to try and ride Gunther's title reign past Honky Tonk Man. I think that's based on kind of the scuttlebutt that Triple H is trying to rewrite some of the record books and get some new wrestlers in there, because, the records for holding titles for very long are all very old, because back then they just, left the titles on the top guys, and the top guys were the top guys for the longest while. So now Gunther's one of those guys. So they're going to try and surpass Honky Tonk Man, and then we'll see if he ends up dropping the title. Honestly, I like the idea that people just kind of chase the IC title or the heavyweight title, and it just kind of stays with this guy. It gives the championship more credibility. But at some point, when the champ runs through everybody, you start to question, well, then who is left to actually defeat him, right? Drew McIntyre just failed to capture the title at SummerSlam, and I can only assume that he's going to be out for a bit, or he's going to come back as heel, or he's going to cost Chad Gable the match, and maybe Chad and Drew will have a whole thing. But I don't want that to happen. I want Imperium versus Alpha Academy. Honestly, I want Alpha Academy to get bigger. I think it's pretty manageable now with Maxine, Otis, and Chad. I think that's a very good core group, but I need Drew Gulak to move up back to the main roster and join that group as the craziest technical professional wrestling faction in WWE. If anyone, no one's listening to this, but if anyone hears this working at WWE, please tell Drew Gulak to strap on the red, white, and blue, get up to Raw, and help out his boy Chad Gable, because that would be the most dominant tiny man faction in the WWE. Anyway, what do you guys think of Gunther versus Chad Gable and the Alpha Academy versus Imperium? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and make sure to listen to more episodes on YouTube, and don't you ever forget.
I'm your friend, but if I ever see you in the ring, I can beat you. Don't you know? Yeah, yeah, yeah.